Chairman Bryan,
Here.
Vice Chairman Barris,
Here.
President Gilbert, Mr. Interfund,
Here.
Mr. Barty,
Here.
Mr. Landry,
Here.
and Mr. Marshall.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Kathy. We'll go to item 3, consideration of approving the following. A, Ward 2, $20,475, Ward 2 Fire Protection District Number 1, funding assistance related to the purchase and installation of a generator at Station Number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Barris, second by Mr. Interfund. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion will carry. Item number 4, administrative presentation of the Parish proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm excited to be here tonight after a pretty tumultuous year to propose or present the proposed 2021 budget to you as the Budget Committee. And before we get started in the presentation, I want to thank a few folks because this is a long and complex process. The lead, as always, is Tammy Buffkin, our Finance Director. There's nobody better at this than her, and I don't mean just in Calcasieu or the state. She's excellent, and she got a great staff, and she's assisted, especially in this process, by some key folks, Judy Hewlett, Kelly Fontenot, and we appreciate that. From administration, I also want to thank Dane Bolin, Alberto Galan, and Jessica Booth, very important contributions. And then all department heads and the folks in each department that work on the budget, especially this year, I want to commend them for their efforts. This one was more challenging for reasons you might know already, but we'll explain in an economic environment that's pretty challenging. So there's a lot of good, and I'm very proud of what we have to present, and hope you will feel that way as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I do some PowerPoint slides. At any point, just stop if you have a question. I'll try to go through these quickly, but I want to be thorough as well. If you look at the cover slide, at the bottom, we include your core values for the police jury. And it's important, especially at this time, to maybe revisit those. Vision, collaboration, dependability, financial stewardship, and boy, is that one a value. And it's one we keep referring to in this period where we need to determine what does that mean so that you can be effective as elected leaders overseeing your services. I like to break this presentation into 3 parts. The economic environment is one that always helps set the stage because the economy in any region will dictate a lot as to what the public revenues are, because sales taxes, property taxes, even gaming in our case, go up or down based on the state of the economy. So that's important to put everything in that context. Then you get into the numbers. That's the fiscal overview. And right at the end, just on a couple of, it's kind of a look ahead, not the numbers part, but what environment are we in? So let's talk about the economy. If I can flip this. Tom, any help? Thank you. Now, I'll say right off, my staff probably would have voted against me putting all these frowny faces, but I believe we got to acknowledge the state or environment we're in and not act like it's not happening. But it's not all bad news, but we've had some really tough news this year. Top left of the slide. And this was even before COVID. I wouldn't say a downturn as much as sort of a flattening out of the, we're very reliant on petrochemical industries here, and they're great job providers. Well, oil and gas supplies throughout the world have been high, which means it keeps prices low. So that was starting to flatten. Top right then, here comes March, and what we all now know in everyday discussions is COVID-19 and the impact it's had, and unfortunately, on people's lives, people's health. But then you get into the whole economic side, and it's been very tough. Bottom left, we thought it was bad. It got worse. Hurricane Laura. Top 10 among strongest storms to ever strike the United States, not Louisiana. Some will say it's in the top 5. I get different views. It doesn't matter. it's in the Hurricane Hall of Fame, and not for a good reason. And it hit us, hit our parish, every corner of this parish, and then insult to injury, here comes Delta, okay? 6 weeks later. So yes, it's tough. That's why I say when it rains, it pours. But, I can click the slide. There is reason for hope, and I don't mean pie in the sky, feel good. There is a lot of good reason for hope, and we're going to get into some of that in this presentation. Let's start with this. Every year, as some of you know, some of you even watch it, it's virtually this year. Lauren Scott, Dr. Scott, a very well-respected economist in Louisiana. He gives his Louisiana Economic Outlook report. He forecasts for the upcoming 2 years. He does it for every metro region in the state. And he gives the Lake Charles MSA, which is our parish in Cameron, actually, out of the whole state, believe it or not, the highest projected increases in jobs, which for an area hit as hard as we have, it's impressive. Now, that depends on one, maybe two of the LNG projects getting final investment decisions, but even without that, many turnarounds have to be done because they've been put off, and there's other projects and other reasons. So that is reason for hope, and it's not just us. That's not us talking. So you can see the decline in jobs here in the last couple of years, especially 2020, but some of that's coming off the boom. That was expected, but there's a lot to look forward to in the terms of employment and the economy. Another reason for hope, now we're going to get into the numbers. I say it every year, and it's kind of, you know, what's the big deal? But the budget is balanced. In this environment, and I'm going to hit y'all with some numbers that are going to be kind of eye-popping on the cost of this recovery. But even with that, the work of finance department, all of our departments, years of sound, keeping good fund balances, it pays off in these situations. I will say disaster recovery is a significant component of this budget. We'll get to that. But we are not backing off on capital investments. The good news on that is we've put a lot of money aside for that, and many of those important projects will go forward. I'll get into that as well. Not just road and bridge and drainage, but buildings as well. And then we are gonna have to do some operational spending reductions because of expected revenue decreases, but again, the news is not all bad. Matter of fact, there's some good there. So I'm breaking down the budget numbers part into three groups. I'll take the big broad view first, compare the 2020 budget this year to what we proposed for 2021 overall. Then I'll break that down, talk about revenues a little while, and then when we get to expenditures, three categories. One we usually don't have, disaster recovery, and then operations and capital. So let's look at that big picture first. This is what they call a stack bar chart. On the left is our current year budget, 2020. It's $258 million. Made up of the red is operational cost, blue is capital, yellow major grants, debt service is kind of small, and then other. So there's this weird looking green addition in 2021 to make the budget $397 million next year, an increase of 53%. I've never presented anything quite like this. I don't want to again because this is a major disaster recovery cost. But this is the proposed budget, big picture total. Again, we'll break down some of these categories. Let's look at the same information but in table form. I like to do this every year. So that picture you saw, these are the numbers that go there. So take a look first at the, you'll see the categories on the left. 2020, you go down the column, you get to the bottom, there's your $258 million. And what makes that up? Then you go to 2021, and it goes 397. The big thing to catch here in this slide is the difference. 139 million is the difference in the current budget and proposed, and you can see that 150 million is the estimated cost for disaster recovery. So it is the sole reason your budget's going up. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a couple of slides that are kind of like an alternate version that doesn't show this, just to kind of segue for a minute. It's very important. If you took the disaster recovery money out, this is what your budget would look like. This isn't the real one, but I needed to show you that because it's important. It would go down 4%. And where does that come from? It's 10 million less than this year, and you can see that's less operating costs, less from grants, about even on capital. I just wanted you to see that because I know some of this will get printed in the media, but if they just put budgets going up 53% and don't put it in context, it is total misrepresentation. So let's break this down in revenues, and we'll get into this disaster stuff because, you know, Brian, that is a lot of money, and it is. Let's talk about the revenues first. Pie chart's always a good way to illustrate your revenues, and again, every time we talk about this disaster recovery, it's going to stick out. So look at Tom's showing you the wedge, if you will, the pie wedge, disaster recovery. You go, wait a minute, Brian. That's revenues. Yes, there's a good news, okay, on the disaster recovery. I'll get into that later, but not all, but most of that cost will be covered by your insurance and FEMA, okay? So it's not near as bad as it looks at first glance. Prior year fund balance is the second big category because this is going to be a year where you got to use more fund balances for capital projects and some operations. As long as you don't do that year after year, that's what it's for. And we need it this year. And then, of course, you see sales taxes and ad valorem taxes. That's property taxes and some of the others. But that gives you an idea of where the money's coming from to fund this budget. Want to take the revenues and break them down a little. So I've already covered disaster. That's insurance and FEMA. Sales taxes, you've got two. This is the 1 cent tax. The other one, the 1.5 cent that the voters resoundingly approved this year, earlier in July. That's not on here, but this trend's the same. So we just show one, and Tammy prepared. You can see the trend upward during the boom, 2013 going up to 2017, and even then higher, but heading downward, coming off the boom. And then this year in 2020, it's down. Way down because a lot of things have come to a halt through either COVID or the hurricanes. 2021, if you look at budget to budget, the sales taxes are actually going down, but they're slightly trending upward in our projection from end of year this year. So we see that getting better. You're going to see some of the petrochemical plants, which I believe most are operating at about 2/3, 3/4 capacity now. That will edge up. You will start seeing some turnarounds. Plus, as y'all know, you're going to see somewhat of a good shot in the arm from some of the rebuilding. Cities get that, we get that too, both businesses and residential. So we think it's a good enough trend that it could go up a little from projected end of this year. Not the case with property taxes. This one's if you hear me say the word weird a lot tonight, I don't mean to keep saying it, but this one's weird. Property tax base in Calcasieu has gone up steadily over the years. We show you back to 2011. The reason it goes down so much, and this is, by the way, it's a tough projection. We just don't know. And the reason is 2020 is actually a reassessment year. So the tax assessor, Wendy Aguilar, as I think y'all probably know, every 4 years they assess the updated value of all those properties, residential, commercial, industrial, and that you then apply tax rates to that to get tax revenues. This graph is tax base evaluations. This isn't tax revenue. This is the tax base. So you're looking at about a almost $2.5 billion tax base. But next year when those, let's use a house as an example. Same with the business. For that 1 year until you repair it, the value of that house is less, not just a little less. She will take that into account. Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think tax assessor is, without even going through each one, is gonna reduce each tax, the tax value 10% on assets. That doesn't mean that's all she'll do. Every one of them is different. But that's gonna, we're saying it could be as low as a 25% reduction in tax value. Now, looking ahead, everybody, hopefully, or most, repair their homes, repair their businesses. It will go back up when those values go up, but for now, it just happened to hit at a reassessment year, and that's what she's working. And by the way, we're getting off subject a little. She's not gonna complete that this fall like normal. I think it's delayed until next spring, February, March. Tammy, is that true? Okay. In case you're looking for your card in the mail, it's not coming this fall. So we gotta deal with that. That's, you know, that affects us. We've got parish-wide property taxes. I wanna throw gaming in there. It's the last revenue one I'll cover. It too is downward. But there's some good news. Just this year is just really tough with the casinos and so forth. This isn't the only reason. One of the reasons, though, is I think y'all may know that the Isle of Capri is shut down. The others are back and running, but they got hammered by Hurricane Laura. It is unclear when they will come back, and I think that's factored into this. That one could be better, depending, you know. And of course, on all of these, especially something like your tourism and gaming, it's still a ways off, but right with hope for a vaccine for COVID, you could see in the second half of the year, some of these industries could start hopefully seeing a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel. So the revenue picture is not great right now, but we can handle it, and we'll deal with it, and it could be better than we're thinking, but we got to prepare in case it isn't. So let's cover now the expenditures. Where's the money going that we propose you need to spend next year? Just like the revenues, we put it in a nice pie chart. Go to the top right, Tom, with the disaster recovery. That's the biggest category. If it weren't there, Public Works it's usually like above 50%. It's 31%. That's your roads, again, roads, bridges, overlays, things like that. And then you can see the rest of the categories are smaller. That's pretty standard. The big difference, of course, is we got to fix our buildings, and we got to pick up debris in roads and ditches. So let's cover some of that. This is where the $150 million comes from on disaster recovery cost estimates. If you look at all our buildings, and go back, feels like a long time ago, but in January, because it's a new police jury term, we had orientation. And when we got to the facility management part, we explained, you own a lot of buildings. And it's one thing to say it, it's another to see it. We didn't get to bring y'all on tours because COVID hit, but if you want to know, well, how do we really own that many? Well, it's going to cost us about $90 million to $100 million to repair our buildings. That gives you an idea. That's not one or two buildings. That's a lot. And we've had really good insurance coverages. Hats off to our staff. It's gonna test our limits on this one, but we'll get there. We have to pay the deductible, which will be probably close to $10 million, but that 90 will be covered. But that's our own building damage. The second category is one you're very familiar with, road debris removal. Alan and his team, working with the contractor, been doing that. The $30 million is what we expect in 2021. There is a large amount. I don't know what we expect this year, but that only covers what's left next year because we got to pay the contractor for current. Drainage lateral cleanout hadn't started. Alan's working hard on. We're going to be getting help from a company to do the overall assessment for that. That'll take a while. We expect once that gets kicked off, we may spend before the end of next year close to $29 million to remove debris from laterals. The road debris part, feds are going to cover 100% of the first 30 days, and if we're very lucky, we don't know yet, they may cover 90% of the remainder of that. That's got to get approved. we won't know that until January. If it's not 90, it'll be 75%, 25 local. Drainage, don't know yet. I suspect when it's all said and done, we're hopeful the feds will cover 75% of that cost. Give you an idea of what we got to look at from our side. So that's disaster recovery. Anything before I move on? And please ask questions if you need. Yes, sir.
Brian, okay, so, let me see how to ask this question.
Joe, tell him I got a question, please.
Huh? Okay, so we added 150 million to the budget,
Yeah.
but the feds are gonna cover, hopefully, or they are gonna cover 100%.
We think out of that 150 in all the categories, Mr. Brain, we think probably all but about 15 to 20 million will be covered.
Okay.
If you looked at a business pro forma or an income sheet, you would see revenues coming in, expenditures here, but the way we have to do it, when you show the costs, you don't see the revenues, but it's a good news story.
So we're increasing our budget 150 million, but we could possibly get reimbursed.
For all but about 15 to 20 million,
Okay,
yes.
but
Yes.
it's still reflected in the budget.
It is, but because we present to you an expenditure budget, because that's what people think of, how much are we going to spend? But yes, that's very important. I'm glad you asked that. There are revenues to offset a very big portion of that.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Joe?
I think Joe's next, and then he.
Mr. Beam, I know you mentioned that the tax assessor is going to reduce the assessment this year by 10%. That's
A minimum.
a minimum. That's for homes. Is there any consideration for businesses? Okay.
It's everything.
It's everything. Okay, good. Second point of that, I know you pointed out about COVID and how that's impacted businesses. As we know, there's, my microphone's going in and out.
Why don't you, can you use Anthony's? That happens. We've got a couple of those. Sorry.
Okay. The COVID, how it's impacted business, we know. We see an uptick in this, and, Calcasieu Parish is, as of last week, and I could stand corrected, it's my understanding it's the highest in the state. So is there any, it doesn't seem that the residents and citizens in this parish, many are adhering to things, others are not. Is there any discussions about reinstating the task force to remind people the importance of what COVID and how it can impact us?
Just so I'm clear, you mean a local task force?
Yes, the meetings that you've had in the past, I think
okay.
it drives home the point of the importance and what's going on. And the only reason why I tie this, I guess some people may think this is not germane to the topic, but I think it is because of the way it impacts our budgets and businesses.
Let me answer that. It's a good question. We didn't have, it was a task force, matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it, there's something called ESF 8. It was already existing, it's emergency service function for health and medical services. So that was already there, and then we would bring in the executive committee with Tony and the mayors, and then we'd bring in Lacey Kavanaugh and the hospital execs. I think probably knowing what's happening in the last few weeks, I could envision us in December maybe pulling a group together to say, okay, what do we need to do better? As you probably know, anything regulatory-wise for that comes from the state level. But we are, and I think Dr. Kavanaugh actually was on the news last night saying, okay, yeah, it's not good here, but it's not quite as bad as it's being presented. Regardless, it's not good anywhere in the country right now. So yes, it's very serious, and you're right. It directly affects the economy. So we're going to be working, we're going to probably pull that. Now that the hurricane recovery is getting a little further along, we need to pull that group back together.
Thank you.
Because hospital, y'all may know that, I don't want to dwell on it. Big concern right now is hospital bed capacity. Because, people with diseases other than COVID have to get help too. So it's going to be tough. I'm sorry, Mr. Marcantel.
Yeah, the 15 or 20 million that we may end up paying, is that built into this here? Where will that show up at the end of the year?
It'll show up on, yes, I'm sorry. The answer is yes. So let's say we spend that.
Right.
Outlay of cash, it will be, yeah, it'll hit the books, and so there is cost.
Okay.
But we're actually, it's the old deal, most of this, you gotta pay for it and then get reimbursed. So
reimbursed
yes,
for it.
yes, sir, that answers your question. Thank you, okay. Let's, talk about operations here. That is a budget that we are proposing decreasing 8%. That's one where we needed to look hard. So what did we do? I asked the department, said, we got to come in at a minimum of a flat level, in some cases down, simply because of revenue projections. And I'm very pleased that they did that. Takes a lot of discipline. So how did we do it? Well, one big area was we reduced unfilled positions, I think 19. We were, no layoffs, okay? In boom years, which is very recent, we needed more workers. We still do in some cases. So we would budget positions, but we had a hard time filling them because they were hard to fill, not because we didn't want to. Well, looking ahead this year, we said to all the departments, look, we can't go filling those. We've got to make sure we don't add to the budget. So that's where the bulk of this came from. But also helping was the fact that our health care coverage, we are self-insured, but we aren't having to up the amounts we're putting in the budget to cover claims. That's stable, which is good. Our retirement system, good news there. The percentage that we have to pay as the employer is flat. That helps us a lot. And then some departments, that especially Public Works and others that have to purchase equipment, can delay some of those purchases. So you add all of that up. But I had a challenge for them because we believe in our employees. We need to recruit. We need to retain employees. So we said we got to do that, but find enough room for 2.5% wage adjustment. And they did. So there is an increase for employees in this at 2.5%. It is manageable. In the end, the net is still an 8% decrease, and so I'm very proud of that, and I know the police jury is supportive of trying to keep our wage levels good, because even in this environment, staffing is tough. That's the operational, real quick, and again, I'm going to go through this quickly, but stop me if you need to. Yes, I'm sorry. Chris? I can.
Somebody has that, I'd like to know by department, what type of equipment that they're delayed on.
Yes, sir. Will do. Is there anything? Okay.
Just one-
Mr. Andrew Pond has his hand up.
I just want to compliment, I think it's important that we continue to keep our employees mindful in giving the increase. I mean, that's tremendous. I just want to reiterate your point about the 8% decrease, but keeping in mind of rewarding our employees.
Thank you. Let's look at capital. This is big. We're going to continue to push forward. We're all kind of frustrated. I know, like some of you, the timing, we could have been a lot further this year, but fact is, COVID was kind of invisible, but it slowed things down, and then 2 hurricanes. But we continue to have good capital investments, and if you look at 2021, roads and bridges, it's a little too common just to throw that out at $77 million. You're talking about road overlays, new road construction, bridge replacements, intersection improvements, everything. Next big category is what we call major facilities. That's our bond projects. Those are buildings. I'm going to cover a few of these in the slides, and then you can see you got some drainage, courthouse complex and jail, also some renovations out at the Industrial Avenue facility on Highway 14. These are all separate from none of this is disaster recovery, okay? Few examples, these will look familiar to you. Coach Williams Road extension is actually far along. We think, I don't know, it's first quarter. Could finish in first quarter 2021. Johnny Bro Road, that's just north of Sulphur. Johnny Bro Road extension, just southeast of Vinton area, a great connector road along with utilities. Will be a great help for the economy down there. It's right near the Vinton port, and that will help them attract businesses because it's been hard, frankly, to get to their property with these big trucks. Ham Reed Road extension, extremely important. That'll take us from Elliott Road westward to Big Lake Road. It's 2 phases. We're very close to starting that. And that will affect a lot of folks in the Lake Charles area. And then we have 8 bridge replacements planned, some finishing, some starting, but 8 total. And then we still have some drainage projects. And again, if there's questions on those, either now or later, we certainly can fill those in for you. Mr. Barris?
Thank you, Mr. Beam. When will work resume on the Johnny Bro Road extension?
I need a little help on that. Is Tim here? Yes. Tim, can you come up?
Actually, Mr. Bears, the time is still ticking on this project, so it's not that we've stopped the work. There may have just been some, I guess, some temporary stoppage, but it's still moving forward.
Okay,
So
thank you.
there's been no stop on this.
The last, handful of times I've been by there, I kind of look to see what's going on and
Yeah.
don't see,
We meet regularly with the contractor on a regular basis, so I'll be glad to give you more specifics as far as where they stand on this.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Good. Major facilities, juvenile justice, that one's under construction. We too think that will wrap up first quarter of next year, where you can go do a ribbon cutting. This will be a premier facility, long-awaited, and I say premier, we'll have people from around the country visit this to match the quality of the program out there. We needed this facility. It's far along. That's good news. Forensic Center, I know we've been meeting with some of the jurors on that. A lot of good news. We'll get with y'all later. We've had some good success just recently on a little bit of a slight revision on where the building would be on the footprint of that property that will allow us to expedite the start of this. So I think we're very close. I can get into more detail later. That also includes the crime lab, which is run by the sheriff, but it's a 5-parish crime lab. Animal Services, right on the heels of that one. We need to start construction on that in the first half of next year. Designs are pretty wrapped up. Very close on that. Burton Complex is HVAC, total replacement, and some other improvements that will start very soon. The Judicial Complex here downtown will, just a reminder, that will be a new building where the current Magnolia parking garage goes. It will connect to the existing Judicial Center with a common entrance, a new front on Piton Street. It's very, the word complex is right for that because it's a challenging one and it's big, but it'll be very needed. I don't know as far as the timing on that. That one it's not far away, but it's a little beyond the others, but we're very close on so many of these. And I know we keep saying that, but we mean it. I promise you. Just don't hit us with another couple of hurricanes and we'll be okay. Okay. Let me stop there before I'm almost done. Just got a couple of slides. Anything on the numbers before we go on? And we're about to have a big input period, so there's plenty of time to ask questions.
Anybody have any questions? George,
Okay. They're just,
Carry on, Mr. Bailey.
thank you. Okay, look ahead. The recovery process begins. This is mainly hurricane related. There is a lot done in the recovery period in any big storm, and I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about, but we are now firmly in that process. Yes, the debris, that's kind of recovery, but we're entering that period of, okay, what are we going to do as a community, as a parish, even as a region, looking long-term to recover from this in a way that we can help lessen the impacts for future storms. I don't mean just emergency management. The whole economy, housing, community capacity, all kind of things. The good news is there is a very formal process for this. Earlier today in this room, we had a very productive meeting with FEMA officials. Let me cover how this works. I know we're worried about nationwide people forgetting about us. I can tell you, working with the state and FEMA, they haven't, and there is a whole process just for long-term recovery. It is kicking off. This is sort of a, timing is good to just show y'all how this works. Back in 2012, they updated all this. It's called the National Disaster Recovery Framework. You can see that, that's a booklet cover on the right there, Jessica put slide of. They break down recovery for a community like Calcasieu Parish, or, you know, the parish is hit by this, Laura mainly, into 6 what they call RSF functions. I'm not going to get all technical, but it's important. That means recovery support functions. So for every one of those, there will be, it's a local effort in terms of it's our plan in the end, but we get help from the state and the federal partners to assist us go through each one of those categories, and you can see for yourself what they are. Housing sticks out a lot. Infrastructure may mean better codes for drainage or how you build things. Economic, we're all kind of worried what businesses are going to be open, what's going to stay reopen, what's going to stay closed. How do you get people to invest here later? They're a little leery about this area. You got to look at, they force you to look long-term. I can tell you we did this after Rita. It wasn't called this then. A lot of good things came from that. And some of that's going to be money. That's not the only reason you do this, but you have to do it. So that you'll hear more. This is probably a, I don't know, 6-month, 8-month process, just getting kicked off. You'll hear a lot more about it soon, but I wanted to tell you that's already underway, and this is another one of those, I said at the beginning, there's reason for hope. This is going to help us a lot. Okay, last 2 slides. I want to show this for a reason. I'm not the weatherman. I'm not going to go back over the past, but this, we all know we got hit by 2 storms in 6 weeks, roughly 15 miles apart. I thought that was a freak thing, and it is, but if you go down to Central America now, they've got like 3 areas that got that. It's really an uncanny year. But if you look at the 2 storms and the paths, you have what, it creates a V, which is a fork in the road. So look where they intersect, and then what happens once they go north, and it's a good, I felt like that was a kind of good analogy. These storms have hit us, but what does this mean? We all know what a fork in the road means. It means you got decisions to make. And not only you as a jury, but this whole community is going to have to decide what it does in what is a very tough time. We got knocked down. I don't know if you'd say we're on the mat, but we kind of are. So what do we do? And the way I view it and the way we want to present it is you got some decisions to make. We all do. And how you approach those decisions, I think, will determine what we do. Your attitude, in any case, and I don't mean just the police jury, individuals, businesses, government, will determine what do we do. If you'll see this cute little boy and girl have hit a point where they got to decide which way they're going to go. And I love this picture because they're our future, all the children in this parish. If you take one path, which you might, it's despair and fear. It is perfectly understandable right now that many of our people are in despair. They're homeless, or they're jobless, or they just don't know. It's been very tough, and it's actually right that they're fearful. We all are. Are we going to get hurricanes every year? A lot of people are asking, am I going to be employed next year? Am I going to get COVID? I mean, they're just very scared and a lot of despair, and that is understandable. The problem is if you stay there, it is a cycle that you won't get out of, and we've seen communities around the country don't come back well from these, and they die out. So you got to decide, are you going to have the path that is hope and opportunity? I don't mean to get preachy on here, but I do think it's not just some feel-good thing. You have to have hope if you're going to come out and survive and thrive. We have hope. we feel strongly y'all have hope. And it's going to take that right path. And you also have to see beyond the negative and all the stuff you see on the roads and the buildings damaged. What opportunities are there? I can assure you there's a lot of opportunities. Some of that's going to come in the form of help monetarily, but there's also technical assistance. There are opportunities to do things differently, better, and we believe this approach is going to be played out over the next several months in this recovery process, but the budget presented fits that path of hope and opportunity. Otherwise, we'd say we can't do anything because we hit about 2 hurricanes. And our attitude is going to drive that. We're very practical here, but we're also, you have to be, I think endurance is a good word, and out of that, we will be stronger. I know that's kind of cliche, but this budget, we hope you support it, represents a growth and not stagnation, and it's not all despair and fear. It's one of positive outcomes that will take us a while, but we'll get there. So with that, my last slide, Mr. Chairman, is simply a time table. We present this tonight. It's actually input period for several weeks. This committee needs to meet again on December 3rd. By state law, we have to do a public hearing. Any input can come other ways, but we do that one. And then and they recommend the budget that night if they're happy with it. And then the full jury meets on the 17th of December to take action on the final adoption of the budget. That completes the process, makes it official, and it's a calendar year budget, and we start anew. So with that, I've completed it. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate y'all's patience, and we certainly, if there's any final questions, other than that, I'm finished for tonight. There's no action needed on your part. This is just presentation. It is going to be on our website, posted for any of the public. There'll be a link for all of this. And what I mean is, not just the summary or anything, but this is the whole document, and it's all there for everybody, so.
Well, I just want to say thank you and the staff and all the department heads. I don't know how they had time to put a budget together, but I'm glad that they did it. But as I say every year, we appreciate it, and thank you for what y'all do. Is there any, George,
Thank
have
you.
any questions or anything? Are there any other matters for consideration? If not, we'll be adjourned.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. We are adjourned.